Hi, friends. Did you know that there is a state in the United States that had mandatory gun ownership? And what state do you think it is? That's right, it's Texas. Today, I learned a lot of interesting things about Texas, and I will try to share it with you. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new videos, and I already have a lot of interesting videos on the channel. And so, the state of Texas was once even a separate state. From 1836 to 1845, Texas was an independent state known as the Republic of Texas. It declared independence from Mexico and even had its own flag, government, and president, Sam Houston. In 1845, Texas joined the United States. But even after the annexation, the nickname of Texas remained, the Lone Star State, which symbolizes the state's struggle for independence. The star is depicted on the flag and coat of arms of Texas, emphasizing its unique status and spirit of independence. That's how many interesting things we have learned. But I want to talk about the strange laws that existed in Texas. And some of them are still in place, but most of them are only on paper and have no practical application. Ban on the appearance of dinosaurs in advertising. An outdated law prohibited the use of dinosaur images in oil company advertisements so as not to mislead consumers. This law was repealed as it became meaningless. The law banning the use of dinosaurs in advertising seems like a curio, but its purpose is actually quite practical. This unusual law dates back to a time when marketing began using cartoon characters and fictional creatures to grab the attention of consumers. In some cases, the use of dinosaurs in advertising could be misleading, especially if the product or service had nothing to do with prehistory or paleontology. The main purpose of such a ban could have been to prevent unfair advertising, where dinosaur imagery would be used to attract attention without a real context related to the product. It seems to me that now this law can be applied much more broadly. Were you surprised by this law? But this is just the beginning. How do you feel about the burger eating ban? Yes, there was such a law in Texas, as well as diaper bans on Sundays, spitting restrictions, and other curious laws. Watch the video to the end to learn about these laws. Prohibition against wearing cowboy boots without cows. There is a myth, perhaps with real roots, that in some areas of Texas, you couldn't wear cowboy boots unless you owned at least one cow. That law no longer exists. Outdated gambling restrictions. Gambling has always been strictly regulated in Texas, but some laws were particularly odd. For example, you couldn't play cards at home if there were more than 6 people in the room. Many such restrictions have been lifted, though casinos are still prohibited, except on Indian reservations. Regulation of eating a cheeseburger in the fasting state. Some regions of Texas previously had religious laws prohibiting the consumption of meat on certain days. Although these laws were unofficially supported by the church, their legal validity has long since been revoked. Banning the sale of diapers on Sundays. Texas once had so-called blue laws that regulated what could and could not be sold on Sunday. For example, diapers and household goods were prohibited from being sold. Most of these restrictions were repealed in 1985. Spitting restrictions. Texas used to have strict laws against spitting on sidewalks or streets to prevent the spread of diseases such as tuberculosis. This law no longer applies, although it did exist in some cities. Are you tired of Texas's weird laws yet? If not, then let's move on. There are more weird laws to come. What are your weird laws? Be sure to post them in the comments. Banning the display of underwear in store windows. Some cities in Texas had a law that prohibited the display of women's underwear in store windows. This law was repealed as outdated. Restrictions on appearing in public in women's clothing for men. In the past, Texas had laws prohibiting men from wearing women's clothing. These were directed against transvestites and transgender people. These laws were repealed as violating human rights. Regulation of dance events. Previously, there were strict restrictions on dance events. For example, dancing between men and women without a certain distance could be considered indecent. These laws no longer apply as cultural norms have changed. Restrictions on alcohol in bars. Some Texas cities had laws that prohibited bars from selling alcohol on certain days or times of day. Many of these have been repealed, although restrictions on alcohol sales on Sunday and before 10 a.m. are still in place in some counties. Proxy weddings. Texas used to allow so-called proxy weddings, where the bride or groom could choose not to attend the ceremony at all and have a proxy perform the ceremony instead. This law was repealed because it caused a lot of fraud. Mandatory Bible reading in schools. Texas schools once required mandatory Bible reading at the beginning of the school day. However, this law was ruled unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court, which ruled that such a practice violated the principle of separation of church and state. Blasphemy ban Texas once had a law prohibiting public blasphemy or speech against religion. However, this law was repealed because it violated the freedom of speech guaranteed by the U.S. Constitution. Prohibition of homosexuality. Texas previously had a law prohibiting same-sex sexual relations, the so-called sodomy law. However, in 2003, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled such laws unconstitutional in Lawrenceville, Texas. This decision struck down the law in Texas and similar laws in other states. Mandatory gun ownership. Once upon a time, a small Texas town, such as Keene, for example, had an ordinance requiring all homeowners to carry a firearm for protection. However, this rule is no longer relevant, as many have deemed it excessive. Banning horseback riding on certain days, some areas of Texas had strange rules restricting horseback riding on the streets on Sunday. These laws have been repealed for being unnecessary. Mandatory rainwater harvesting permits. In the past, it was considered illegal in Texas to collect rainwater without a permit from the authorities because it belonged to the state. However, in recent decades, such laws have been repealed, and rainwater harvesting is encouraged as an environmental practice. Ban on firing guns to scare away meadow dogs. In some areas, there were laws prohibiting the shooting of meadow dogs, gerbils, even if they were causing damage to fields. These laws have been repealed, although protections for some species are still in place. Restrictions on bright holiday lights. In the past, it was illegal in some parts of Texas to put bright holiday lights on homes if they distracted neighbors or animals. That law is no longer in effect. Ban on ice cream in your pocket. The law forbade putting ice cream in the back pocket of pants to avoid strange occurrences with horses. It was thought it might lure another horse. This absurd law was repealed for being unnecessary. Forced bathing. Once upon a time, some towns in Texas had laws requiring people to take a bath at least once a week. These rules have long since been forgotten. Killing Bigfoot. Many people say that there is a law in Texas prohibiting the killing of Bigfoot, but in fact there is no specific law in Texas prohibiting or allowing the killing of the mythical creature Bigfoot, because its existence is not officially recognized. However, the issue is periodically debated due to the popularity of Bigfoot legends in American culture. Wow, who knew Texas could be such a treasure trove of strange and fascinating laws? From the quirky ban on eating cheeseburgers on certain days to laws about horse riding on Sundays, and even the odd requirement of owning cows to wear cowboy boots, Texas sure knows how to keep things unique. But here's the real question, friends. Which of these laws surprised you the most? Or do you know of any even crazier laws from Texas or elsewhere? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And hey, don't forget, the Lone Star State isn't just about weird laws, it's also full of rich history, delicious barbecue, and unforgettable landscapes. It's truly a state like no other. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss more bizarre, funny, and jaw-dropping stories from around the world. Turn on notifications to join us on our next adventure. Until then, take care and keep being curious. See you in the next video.